Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today I have David here with me with BetterHelp. And without further ado, we'd love if you could introduce yourself and what you guys do over there at BetterHelp.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is David Yadush. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor in California. I'm also a senior clinical operations manager for BetterHelp. Um, in general, anybody who's ever heard a podcast has probably heard of us before. Um, BetterHelp is an online therapy platform. It's actually the world's largest online therapy platform, and we have, more than 30,000 plus therapists available to clients all over the world. Our goal is to make therapy affordable, accessible, and get rid of a lot of that stigma that's there.
Yep. Yeah, mental health has really been put in the spotlight, over the last decade. I would say it's, really underrated and yet a very important aspect of health that a lot of people have overlooked. What kind
Absolutely.
of recommendations do you have for people maybe going through mental health issues during the stressful holiday season, and what can they do about that?
Absolutely. The holidays are really stressful for everyone, even if it's not a holiday you celebrate, um, because the whole world changes, right? Like people are buckling down, work becomes more stressful. We're coming to the end of the year, so there's more deadlines. Maybe you have to see family that you're not so excited to see. Um, so I always recommend the first thing is to take a moment for yourself. If you're starting to feel stressed out, if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, it's totally okay to take a step back, take a breather, and think about what's important for you. What what can you do that's going to be less stressful? That's going to help you de-stress to fill up your own bucket.
Mhm.
Because we can only give so much to other people, we can only give so much to work, and if it's skiing or if it's running or watching television or video games, whatever it is for you that helps de-stress, 100% recommend as much as you can in between all of the other stresses of the holidays.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of people just don't get enough space sometimes for themselves,
Yeah,
and that's not just inclusive to the holiday season too, right? So that kind
right.
of follows people through their professional life. A lot of times we find ourselves, overworking ourselves and trying to get that project done on time. I guess so. Yeah, since mental health really affects your entire professional life, can you elaborate on some of the importance for mental health and some tips there for what you could apply across the entire year?
Absolutely. Our mental health is so important because it affects, everything in our lives. It affects our day to day, our family relationships, our friends, um, work, our relationship with holidays and sports, and everything is affected by our mental health. And, some of the things that people struggle with are everywhere from, anxiety and depression to just feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. And it's always good to have someone to talk to. And as a therapist, I'm always going to advocate, it's a great opportunity to reach out to a therapist whenever there's something you're struggling with. You don't have to wait until, the car breaks down to go get it checked out. You can go at any point. But it's also good to have people that you care about, your loved ones that you can talk to. Um, One of the things that I advocate for the most in my practice, in the work that I do, in the communities that I support and I engage with, talking about mental health
Yeah.
is the most important thing we can do. It helps to break down that stigma. It helps to let other people that are struggling know that it's okay to talk about. Like these aren't things that need to be hidden away.
Yeah.
Um, and the more we can share, the better we're going to feel about it, and the better other people are going to feel about it.
Yeah. Why do you think a lot of people bottle these feelings up? I think for so long.
I think there's a lot of reasons. It's a really complicated topic. A
Yeah.
lot of it comes from kind of society pressures, right? Society has kind of frowned upon weakness in general. It's pick yourself up by the bootstraps, work as hard as you can, be successful. And that is very counterintuitive to, manage your feelings and make sure you're giving yourself time to rest and feel good. I also think that in that same thread, this idea of feeling like mental health and taking care of mental health is a sign of weakness. I don't think we would ever fault someone who breaks their arm
Yeah.
for going to the doctor and getting a cast, right? And maybe they can't write with that hand for a couple months.
Hmm.
Um, but we look at mental health a little bit differently, and we say, like, why do you need to go see a therapist? Why do you need to talk about these things? And the research has shown that with trauma, with these negative things that happen to us in our lives, not talking about them and just keeping it inside and trying to kind of hide it away from ourselves and from other people
Yep.
just exacerbates the issue, just makes it worse, makes it harder on ourselves. Um, and that's where a lot of depression and anxiety and social anxiety comes from.
Yep. Yeah, it's sort of like it sort of builds up, right? And then, eventually you
Absolutely.
need a release, but it's a lot of times that release could just be, having somebody to talk to as a sounding
Mhm.
board. They don't even need to be an expert sometimes, although an expert could be really helpful, of course. Sometimes it could just be a friend, just to feel like you have somebody to listen to you.
Mhm.
Just let it out.
Absolutely. 100%.
And what can businesses do, I guess, to kind of break this norm that we've had in society? Like, what can a business do to? I mean, obviously, as a business owner, if you have happy employees that are healthy mentally, they're focused, they're happy, they're going to perform better, right? So it actually behooves
Mhm.
businesses to want to address this and create maybe a more inclusive environment that kind of helps address this need. What can businesses do actually to help support this?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's critical for businesses to take the opportunity to support their employees' mental health. People work roughly 90,000 hours in their lifetime. Like that's a lot of time at work, right? Like if you really put it into perspective, um, and burnout and people's mental health is like the number one reason for people to change jobs, to like leave somewhere. So it's really important for businesses to take mental health seriously and consider how they can support employees. And the top things for me are one, talking about it, making sure that it's understood that it's okay to be struggling with your mental health. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to approach your manager and say, "Hey, I need some time, or I need some support, or I need to talk through this project I'm struggling with." It's also important, you know, a lot of businesses have EAP programs or support services or other things available to their employees. And sometimes employees just don't know about it.
Yep.
So, companies, executives, management, people leaders, everyone who's in a position to kind of help organize this, take the opportunity to share. Hey, these are the resources available to you. This is something that I encourage people to use. Um, for those who feel comfortable, as a people manager myself, I totally talk about my mental health. I talk about my experience in therapy. I talk about, when I'm feeling burned out or drained or anxious about something. I like to talk about it because it helps the people I'm working with know, like, cool, I can talk about this too. Like I can share, I don't have to be this perfect, suited up individual who just powers through everything.
Yeah, and a lot of people respect that authenticity too, knowing who you are, and just feeling like they have a more human connection with you, right? You're not just the guy on the other side of emails that they send
Exactly.
every day. But that's where BetterHelp kind of comes in too, right? So, you know,
Mhm.
for businesses to kind of give that outlet for people if they need it, they can go to BetterHelp and they could get the sounding board that they actually need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned earlier that we have 30,000 therapists, right? So BetterHelp is a teletherapy opportunity for people. You can go online from the comfort of your home, from your car if you have no private place at home, your bedroom, wherever it is that you need to be able to access for privacy, for to be able to engage with a therapist. We really want to eliminate a lot of those barriers to having to get in your car and find a therapist, having to locate someone, and
Hmm.
having such a large support network. I grew up in a really rural area, and looking for a therapist where I was really tough because I either knew them and their families, right? Like if a small town of 1,000 people,
Oh
you know
yeah,
everyone.
I grew up in a small town too. I totally know it.
Right. So it's hard to find a therapist there, but I also didn't want to drive to the nearest city, which was an hour to go see a therapist. Like that just that doesn't work.
And get
Oh, did
charged
I lose
New
you?
York rates too. No, I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And they charge New York rates.
Yep. I like it. Well, so as a business owner, like how can you help identify maybe some people that might be going through some mental health issues? And how can you carefully maybe, address it without, obviously there's probably going to be some, you're going to have to go about it in a certain way to where you don't want to draw too much attention to it, but how would a business owner go about identifying if somebody is going through something and what's the best way to approach it?
Absolutely. That's a good question because we don't. we don't ever want to like call anybody out in public, right? We don't want to say like, hey, it looks like you're, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, and you don't
What's
want to
going
assume
on,
anything either.
right? Like people don't want that. Um, so if you notice that an employee is less engaged than usual, or, we can tell when people are stressed out. Like you
Yeah,
can tell when someone's struggling to get work done, or, they're feeling more frantic. Um, so when you see those concerns and you have concerns for burnout and stuff like that, pulling someone aside separately and say, hey, like, I know there's a lot of stuff going on that's real stressful. Is there anything I can do to support you?
yeah,
Um, Coming at it from that approach rather than what's wrong with you or what's going on.
100%.
People tend to get real defensive, right? Like,
Hmm.
I
There's
don't
nothing
want
wrong
to, I don't want,
with it.
right, exactly. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. Um,
Mhm.
People want to know that you're there to support them.
So it's more about like getting people to kind of start the initial part of talking about it, right? So
Yeah,
they might not even realize that they have a problem too, for that matter, right? So you can even
exactly.
address it as a problem initially. Just get people to talk about themselves and their life, and see if there might be
Mhm.
something there. You can maybe even make them come to realize about themselves.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really good point there is I think a lot of people, we kind of fool ourselves into thinking we're okay, right? Like we'll push and push and push and push until we're at that like total burnout stage and we feel exhausted. But we tell ourselves like, oh, it's fine. I have, tomorrow's Friday, or, next week I have something I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to. Um,
Yep.
so it's important to, if people are offering that support and asking questions, it's it's a great opportunity to find that out for yourself too.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people just tend to want to kick the can down the road, right? Like you said, like the weekend warriors. So everybody kind of lives for the weekend, and then Monday hits again. You get you get that Sunday gloom where you
Yeah,
realize that the
the
week
Sunday
started.
scaries.
The Sunday scaries, yeah, where you never really address the problem. You just kicked it, down the road week by week, looking for the next opportunity, I guess. But I guess during the holiday season too, what would you recommend for stress management?
Um, there's it's going to be different for everyone. Um, but some of the key things for stress management that I recommend to all of my clients, to everyone I work with, and even to myself and my family members is, like I mentioned before, taking time for yourself. Find it 5-10 minutes where you can.
Yep.
If there's the opportunity for, like, if you've learned breathing exercises or relaxation or meditation techniques, I know they can feel weird doing the first couple times, right? Like you're just sitting somewhere and breathing deeply. But there's an actual like physiological effect on our bodies
Yep.
when we do it that makes a huge difference. Um, I also encourage, when you're starting to feel like you're burning out or you're feeling overwhelmed or you're starting to really struggle with something, talk to someone, engage with that loved one, like we were saying before. It can be a friend, it can be a family member. It doesn't have to be a therapist, but it
Yep.
can be a therapist. Talk to someone about it. You don't have to suffer alone because a lot of people are going through the same stress and struggles during the holidays.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of it's reacting to things like they got to get that report done or
Mm-hmm.
deliver for Q4 numbers prior to the end of the
Exactly.
year. So sometimes things don't always go right, and that can lead
Exactly.
to a lot of stress actually too. So how would you go about telling people how to react when things don't go right, and how do they address you know when this happens and move on from it, accept it, and then move on from it?
Mm. The first thing to do when something goes wrong is you have to step back. You have to step back from the issue and take a moment because when we react automatically to something bad that's happened or something that's wrong, it we don't have the full capacity to be able to manage our feelings with it. We don't have the full capacity to think clearly. It affects our cognition, our ability to like engage fully with ourselves. So taking that moment to step back when
Yep.
something happens and kind of evaluate, see where you are, um, see how you're feeling in your body in that moment, and what you can do about it. After that, that's when you can start to kind of evaluate next steps. You know, the problem, whatever happened, isn't going to change in that moment. It's not going to change in the next 5 minutes,
Yep.
right? Once you've done that, that's when you can start doing the work of, okay, what do I need to do? And try to kind of rationally explore what that's going to look like. And remembering to honor your feelings and your emotions in that process.
Yep.
because, we all know when bad things happen, it's not just a crisis in that moment, right? It's that moment and moving forward until things are resolved.
Yep, absolutely. And another point of stress too is giving and getting feedback too. A lot of
Mhm.
times people don't want to be the bad cop, but feedback nonetheless is critical for growth. So, what would you recommend maybe for business managers to be able to give feedback, especially if it's critical, and have that feedback be received in a positive way by the employee?
Absolutely. I've always struggled giving critical feedback, right? Like nobody really likes to tell people what they're doing wrong for the most part. Um,
Yep.
so as a as a people manager, sticking to the facts and being clear and straightforward are really important. When the kind of emotional pieces get involved, um, that's when it can kind of feel a little bit more personal rather than about growth. Uh,
Yep.
I encourage using I statements, talking about like I've noticed, and trying to steer clear best you can of like you've been doing X, Y, Z. You've been this kind of blaming approach,
Yep.
um, and most importantly, with all of that is when giving feedback, it's really helpful to also give like the opportunities for growth, to
Yep.
talk about what can be changed and give some solutions, because when you're receiving feedback on the other side of it, it's often not easy to hear, right? Like we don't want to hear things that we're not doing well, but we also generally want to grow and want to do better.
Yep.
So if someone's able to give us ideas on what to improve, it's a lot easier to kind of digest and take in that information.
It's all about how you position it. You're totally right. So
Mhm.
it's an opportunity for growth as opposed to you're coming down on somebody and you're attacking them.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and it's always good to introduce a couple positive things too, right? Like talk about what you like about what they're doing. That's a good reinforcement as well
Mhm.
too, so they could reinforce some of the things that have been successful with, so they know to continue to keep doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great opportunity for conversation about how your strengths, those things that you do well, the positive things about you, how those can help you overcome some of the challenges you're facing, right? Like some of the difficulties that you need to grow on can be supported by your strengths.
Yep. And what do you think about maybe sometimes like making it a two-way conversation, like even, you being open to feedback from your team members as well too. Like, is there anything I can do to support you? Anything I can do to make the experience better for you or better collaborate with you to ensure your success? A lot of times like being open for that as maybe their business as their manager creates that makes it a lot more comforting environment for people to be able to receive that feedback and appreciate it.
100%. It's like you said earlier, people respond well to honesty and being genuine and open and being a human, right? So so sharing those positive pieces and talking back and forth, it can be a really powerful moment for people to connect.
Yep.
And as a people manager, accepting that feedback and thinking what you can do to kind of change and improve as well, really opens the door for, you know, major growth and potential in working together.
Absolutely. So you kind of touched on some of the mental health therapies that you guys offer. So how does therapy look like? Oh, what does therapy look like when you're offering it for mental health services?
So, therapy, one of the things I tell people all the time is that therapy looks totally different for everyone, right? There's no one size fits all. There's no one approach or one therapist that's gonna be the be all end all for everyone. That said, you know, we may hear a lot about different approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy or somatic therapy, or I could list off a bunch of names, but there's a lot of value in the education that therapists have, and it's important that they have those experiences and the opportunities there. But so much about the therapeutic relationship is about the relationship, right? So much
Yep.
about the work that happens is feeling connected to your therapist,
Yep.
feeling like they're non-judgmental, that you can relate to them, that you feel comfortable sharing some heavy things, right? Like in therapy, we talk about stuff we don't like to talk about. We talk about stuff that we've never told anyone before. And being able to trust your therapist and connect in that way is so important. It's more important than whether it's over video or phone, or if you're messaging your therapist. All of those pieces are tools to help in that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, it all starts with the relationship, and maybe some of the tactics, might start by, like some of the tips that we talked about earlier, being open, kind of making it a two-way dialogue, encouraging people with positive feedback for the information that they're providing you as a therapist as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up a really good point that I want to emphasize there is you can always provide feedback to your therapist. If something's not working, if something is working, if you're feeling weird about something you talked about, or you feel weird about something they said, bring it up. Like,
Yeah.
we spend so much time training about this and talking about this in supervision and in school of how do you manage those tough conversations. So it's really important to be able to develop that relationship when you have that honesty.
Yep. And I guess where can people learn more about BetterHelp, and why should they pick up your guys' services today? Could you elaborate on some of the stuff that you guys do and some of the benefits of working with BetterHelp?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, betterhelp.com. It's pretty easy. Right from there, you can select whether you want individual counseling, couples, or if you're looking for counseling for teens. Over the age of 13, between 13 and 20, I believe it is. Um, and when you start, you're going to go through a process of answering a bunch of questions about yourself, right? So it's going to be a little bit about your history, a little bit about how you're feeling now. Are you struggling with anxiety or depression, or what are your feelings? And we're also going to ask some about your preferences, right? So we'll ask, are you looking for a male therapist or a female therapist, a therapist of color, someone from the LGBT community? And what our system does is it helps to match you very quickly, usually within 24 hours, to a therapist that matches a lot of those requests you have, whether it be about them as a person or about their specialties.
Interesting.
And the goal is to help people find the person that's going to be the best fit.
Yeah.
And then from there, once you're matched, you have the ability to message back and forth. There's a asynchronous messaging. It's open 24/7. Now, therapists won't respond immediately to these. Sometimes they're sleeping or working with other people, right?
Yep.
Therapists are people. So it might take a little time for those, but then that's an opportunity to communicate between sessions. And you can schedule a live video session, a phone call, a live chat with your therapist, whatever works for you. And a lot of times the therapist is going to ask you questions, more questions about yourself to get to know you, maybe a little bit about your history, what you're there for. And that's kind of how you start, how everything gets going.
And how will people know that they need the services? We kind of touched on a few things earlier in the interview, but just to kind of reiterate for anybody, watching today, when do they know that, hey, maybe this is time I should get help, I should get better help? What would you recommend there?
I would say someone once told me that, we don't wait to get an oil change until, the check oil light comes on, right? Because once that light comes on, you're in a tough position.
Yep.
You can go and see a therapist whenever you're starting to feel overly stressed, or you're starting to feel burned out, or you're starting to feel like, hey, this sadness I'm feeling, isn't just because it's dark at 4:30 in the afternoon, right? Like, it feels like it's a little bit more. So I encourage, we don't have to wait until it's a crisis, until it's an emergency to go talk to a therapist. You can talk to a therapist anytime. And it doesn't mean it has to be, oh, I'm in therapy for the rest of my life now. Sometimes therapy is, 6 weeks. Sometimes it's a couple months. So if you're feeling like there's something going on and you're struggling, and it's relationship or personal mental health, or you feel like you can't get over something that happened, take the opportunity, talk to a therapist, talk to someone about it. And, I think what am I trying to say here?
Yeah, just
It's really,
don't keep kicking the can down the road,
yeah, don't kick the can down the road, right? Like, take the opportunity when it's there, and take care of things ahead of time.
Yeah, and it's just something you got to try out too, right? It's not,
Mhm.
like you said, it's not like a lifetime commitment. Also, I know BetterHelp makes it very accessible and very affordable. So maybe you could talk about some of the things that you're doing to, for first time people that might say, hey, maybe I don't need a therapist, but I want to try it out, see what this thing's all about. How is BetterHelp making it more affordable and accessible than ever before?
Yeah, absolutely. So BetterHelp started with a goal of being able to find a therapist easily, quickly, and affordably, right? Like, sometimes even with insurance, you're looking at paying tons of money to see a therapist. You have a hard time finding someone. And so we want to take away as many of those barriers as possible. So we offer financial aid, we offer lots of different discounts. BetterHelp also during times of crisis, if there's a global crisis or like a weather crisis in an area, sometimes we'll reach out and try to offer free therapy for people in that area.
Very nice.
And it's more than just therapy on the platform. So you get a therapist, you get to meet with them, you can set up a regular cadence, whatever works for you. But we also provide support groups. So these are small groups where individuals can, clients can communicate together with the supervision of a therapist and talk about, common topics. We offer classes. So these are like psychoeducational presentations that you can join and see that are about common topics. We offer, sorry about that. All of these things are part of the subscription, right? So when you sign up, you have access to all of these things right away.
Very cool.
And it's about giving people the best opportunity. And then we also have things like the journal. So it's a journal connected right into the app. You can write down your thoughts and feelings. There's prompts in there to help kind of get the juices flowing.
Nice.
And if you want to share them with your therapist, there's a button to do that, or you can keep them to yourself.
That's very interesting. And do you guys allow people to kind of segment themselves into groups like tech people can talk to other tech people and the stresses they're going through?
Generally, so in the group sessions, there's a lot of different topics, so you can find people that you connect with there. But even when you're looking for a therapist, we have, I can't tell you the exact number of options, but therapists can share all of their specialties and experiences. So we have therapists that come from all kinds of opportunities and backgrounds and specialties, for first responders, or, they work specifically with individuals going through grief or who've experienced chronic medical concerns. Right? And so you can find therapists and other clients that kind of connect in those ways so that you're able to feel more free and more open about what you're talking about.
Well, it's really great what you guys are doing, I think, and really powerful, I think. And given the state of society today, I think a lot of people could use mental health because, the world's becoming more connected, more stressful than ever before. And, there's such this drive to want to, get more work done and, kind of keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. So I think a lot of people, might need it more than they think they do. So sounds like there's an easy path for a lot of these people. And you guys mentioned it's very accessible too. So, feel free to give it a try today if you're listening to this. We do have a great discount in the NachoNacho marketplace. We have a 20% discount there. You could also go to betterhelp.com to learn more about their company and check out their services. David, it's been great having you on today, and we look forward to our continued partnership.
Thank you so much. It's great talking to you.
You too. Thank you.